you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming here today. So today I'm going to give you a bit more of a storytelling experience about growing up in the border up till today and working on the Hyperloop. Are you guys familiar with that? All right. So I was brought up in a small town called La Joya, Texas. It's 3,000 population, and the average income for people there is actually $15,000 a year per household. So growing up, I did not have internet until I was 16 years old. So I really only had time to think. And I think my imagination is what really allowed me to start thinking of the future and designing the future that I wanted. And I come from a family of hardworking people. Both grandparents on my mother and on my father's side pick cotton to survive and feed their families. But they never complained. And just last Thanksgiving, from the hospital, my grandfather told me that it was actually one of the best periods of his life. And my family, they're smart but very hardworking people. But I wanted to expand my mindset as much as I appreciated growing up the way that I did. So I set out to Austin, which is why I'm here today, and I began my journey at the University of Texas. So being at UT was amazing. I arrived with this newfound freedom, this newfound expression. I was able to start to become more of myself. But I also realized, after not much time, that the environment was not crafted or made for me. And things like my freshman advisor in natural sciences telling me that I should drop out of being a biology student and do something much more simple was part of that experience. But I did not let things like that weigh me down. And I think that's one essential part of what everyone here should take away, is that we need to be better about believing in ourselves, because we all deserve for our stories to be heard. And we have a lot to share. So I would say she was pretty wrong. I moved on, and I was able to graduate with my biology degree. And during that time, I actually had an experience at the Macomb School of Business, and I started to discover entrepreneurship. And before even finishing with my biology degree, I graduated with my master's degree and becoming the youngest person to ever go through this program. So yes, so I love the MSCC program. It's empowered me so much. Macombs has been such a key part of my life. And through my experience at Macombs is where I discovered and dove into entrepreneurship, starting with social entrepreneurship, trying to lift up other people whose voices needed to be heard. And around this time is where I heard that Elon Musk was announced the Hyperloop pod competition. And I started to expand my perspective even further and think, how can we bridge the gap? How can we bridge the gap between arts? How can we bridge the gap between sciences? How can we make it so that we are building for the future in a way that is inclusive, in a way that's expansive? Because I'm tired of seeing so many companies and technologies doing things the same way. So this is the Hyperloop, for those of you who are not familiar. It's a conceptual model of how it would be. It's like Jetsons travel through a vacuum tube. And the goal is to map major cities across the world and link them. So hearing about this competition, where he called upon the best engineers from around the world to compete, I formed a team. And out of thousands of submissions, my team was one out of 100 that was chosen to design their prototype, which was a pod, a vehicle for this test track, and showcase it to SpaceX. So in that time, it was such an empowering moment, because I thought working with SpaceX was a dream, and I'm doing this, and I'm in college. And it was pretty fulfilling for me to experience this. But only 20 of those teams were to move on and actually test their prototypes at SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, California, and we were not one of them. Well, but we had grit, and we had passion. So even though we weren't officially a part of the competition, we raised over $100,000, we built our prototype, and we showcased it to SpaceX. And they were so impressed that we did that they invited us back into the competition, making us a top 20 team in the world. And I still remember Steve Davis, Elon Musk's VP, the guy who sent us to space, privatized space travel, announced my team's name, Guadalupe, as a winner of the first Innovation Award. But I'm not going to lie, it's been the most enriching experience, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. There needs to be more people like us in the room. This, during this experience, I mean, I've looked around and I get let down because I want to see more and more people like me. I'm just always looking for it. I want someone in the room that I relate to be there. And I think if that were the case, the world would just be such a better place. We need for society to be leadership in society needs to be a representation of the actual world that we live in. And I wonder, what would the Hyperloop be like? What would other technological advances be like if people like you and people like me were in the room designing for it? And I want to make it so that no kid at the border or no person has to know the isolation that I have felt in my life. So every day, I do my best to show up with abundance, with freedom, and with joy. And I think it's time for us to really be conscious and be intentional, because when we were raised and when we grew up in this world, we were brought into rules that society imposed on us, that our families imposed on us, and that religion is imposed on us. But what if we took the time to say, hey, what do I care about? So I'm currently rewriting my own values, my own rules based on love, based on freedom, based on abundance. And that is what I want to carry with me everywhere I go and into every interaction I have and into any company that I built. And I think it's also time for us to start unifying all of these different identities that we've created in order to survive and really own all of the different parts of us. And it's so important for us to really start to take care of who we are. And I know you all know who the exact person you were when you grew up and you were a kid, and who you are today should channel that. Because ultimately, children, they're so smart. Just as Daniel said, they know so much, even though they don't know anything at all. And we live in such a tense political climate, and it's so important for us to be grounded. And it's important for us to take care of ourselves, because change begins with all of us first. And if we take care of ourselves, then we can do bigger things. We can take care of the big problems that our world is currently facing with the tense political climate. What kind of world are we living in when climate change is deemed as something that is political? That is absurd. But we have so much opportunity. We have so much talent. Everyone in the world should be focused at least a little bit on things that are bigger than themselves so that we can have real change. And so I dare each and every one of you here today to flip your own script, empower yourself so that you can empower others. Because those that are bred from luxury do not have the ability to fight the fires that await. Thank you guys so much. The last thing I'm going to say is Hyperloop team I started is doing pretty well. We're partnering with MIT now. They won at the competition last year, or they won on speed, and we won on innovation. And they've adopted our design, which is amazing. And we're also launching a startup. It's still in the works, focused on the Hyperloop, and we really want to make this happen. So thank you guys so much. You can follow me all the day.
Deborah, thank you so much. You're amazing.